OWN Network's current ratings situation has reached such a level that it is no longer possible to remain silent. The network that was once known as a platform for successful Black women today appears to be in a state of decline. That is both surprising and alarming. The drop in ratings is not just a minor drop, but a signal that brings out the myriad stories hidden behind the scenes of this entire industry. When viewership continues to decline, when full figures aren't released week after week, when shows that were once the pride of OWN suddenly go silent, it's clear that something is broken behind the scenes. OWN has always relied on its strong fan base. Viewers were proud that the stories shown here were realistic, emotional, and reflected the real lives of Black families. But when those same viewers see seasons getting shorter, events turning into unnecessarily corny content, and the show's storylines rehashing the same old conflicts over and over again, both taste and trust falter. OWN's current situation shows that the platform has distanced itself from its audience. The real start came when the ratings for Bell Collective's reunion episode came out. The episode that aired on November 21st reached just enough viewers that it was ranked 242nd among all Friday night shows. This was not an insignificant decline, but a sign of a clear crisis. What was once considered a mainstay of OWN was now at a point where even a typical cable show was easily outshining it. A 10% drop in ratings isn't just a number to scream, a declaration that viewers are getting tired of the ride. At last report on October 31st, Bell Collective had 126,000 viewers, already below the threshold. Then, when the reunion aired, another 13,000 viewers were lost. A weak number like 113,000 is not only alarming, but enough to understand that viewers are drifting away, along with the shortened seasons, weeks of missing ratings, and some episodes not even making the ratings charts at all. These are all signs that the show has lost its popularity. But the biggest shocker of OWN's downfall is not Bell Collective, but Love, Marriage, Huntsville, the show that was called OWN's crown jewel. The show that the network was proud to call #1. The show that the entire network's success was built on today. That same show is in such trouble that even the ratings of recent episodes are not showing up. The silence isn't just an administrative oversight, but a bigger question. Were the ratings so weak that OWN didn't see fit to show them? The episode that aired on November 15th reached 200,000 viewers, which was already down from the previous numbers. But the ratings for November 22nd are completely missing. When a show that a network touts as a pride fails to report ratings, the real story begins to emerge. Viewers know that either the ratings were too low to make the charts, or the network thought it best to hide them. The situation becomes even more suspicious when one of the main cast members of LMH is suddenly featured as a guest on a platform, where it was previously said that the show does not need any external platform or promotion. It was clearly an attempt to somehow revive the waning interest. But the problem is not so simple. This is surely a small indication of a larger problem. Both the LMH and Bell Collective shows have the same basic problem: rehashing the same old story. LMH has always stood by Melody and Martell's marital conflict. This was the premise that made the show popular. But when a story ends and is dragged again and again, the audience naturally loses interest. That's what's happening with OWN shows. The cast keeps blaming each other, old rivalries are rekindled, artificial feuds are created, and the same faces show up every season with the same stories. The audience is not stupid. They know when a scene is real and when it's created on purpose. When is a conflict the result of real emotions, and when are artificial methods used to escalate it? As the show drifts away from reality, the audience automatically drifts away. OWN had always built its reputation on real stories. But when the stories start to feel contrived, when the seasons start getting shorter, when the ratings don't show up, and when viewer interest continues to wane, then questions arise at the network. OWN revolves around the same questions today. The social media fire was not yet fully ignited, but emotions, misunderstandings, and secrets were forming a deep circle around the characters with all their intensity. This was actually the turning point in Melody and Martel's life, where past wounds began to resurface. And new whispers were brewing. Melody's quiet nature, her changed demeanor, an unconscious weariness hidden in her eyes were driving Martel's heart and mind against a wall. He couldn't understand why the woman who once changed the world with one of her smiles was now so silent. What is she thinking? Who does she talk to? Who do you trust? Meanwhile, Hill Harper's growing friendship with Melody was something that pricked Martel's heart. He explained to himself many times that Melody was free. She could do whatever she wanted, but the stubbornness of her heart never obeyed. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't accept the fact that Melody could smile so easily with another person. Give him advice and feel safe in his presence. Maybe it was a sense of ownership, maybe regret. Maybe the wreckage of love, whatever it was, had turned into a burning anxiety inside Martel. When Melody gave that vague hint that there might be some new change in her life, some news that had to be revealed in due time, something inside Martel sounded an alarm. He began to note Melody's every move. Her look, her walking speed, her silence, her mobile phone. Everything was pushing him towards some new story. And above all, the name of Hill Harper, name that had come into Melody's life with solemnity, confidence, and honor. This was what bothered Martel the most. The comments on social media were not yet in full swing, but chapter had already started in inner circles. Some people said that Melody has chosen a new path in her life. Some said that she is standing strong for her children. Some even saying that she doesn't care about Martel anymore. But the truth was that Melody was not ready to tell anyone the truth. She didn't want to be obliged to explain to anyone anymore. There was a different peace within him, the peace that comes when a person has cried a lot, endured a lot, and decided to let go of a lot. Martel also had a problem with this comfort. He felt that if a new story was making room in Melody's heart, he had a right to know. He wanted to know what was the last moment when the Melody left his heart and went in another direction. But the hardest thing for him to accept was that maybe that moment had passed long ago, when he himself had caused pain in Melody's life. Meanwhile, a quiet smile from Melody, a gentle phrase, a hidden thought, affected Martel so much that he did not sleep through the night. He felt as if he had lost something and there was no way to get it back. This was the emotional conflict between which the story was moving. OWN Network's declining ratings were no longer a minor blip, but the start of a storm that was enough to shake the entire system. The network that once built its name on true stories, strong characters, and representation of Black families, today seemed to be losing its original identity. Shows were waning in popularity, audiences were becoming bored, and the internal affairs of production had become so muddled that even tried and tested formulas had lost their effectiveness. The very foundation on which OWN stood was beginning to weaken. It felt like every show was taking its last breaths, and every character succumbed to chronic fatigue. From LMH to Bell Collective, the same story was being played out everywhere, and audiences were starting to recognize the artificial gimmick. Disappointment had spread even within the production. The meetings discussed not only the ratings, but also where the actual error originated. Some felt the stories lacked freshness. Some believed the cast had lost its clout, and others said the network was weighed down by the pressures of its own past. OWN had always thrived on conflict, emotion, and real relationships, but now that conflict had turned into artificiality. LMH tried to keep up the impression that viewers were still interested in the story by repeatedly showing the Melody and Martel issues. But the reality was quite the opposite. People were tired and wanted a change. Declining viewership was only a symptom. The real crisis was brewing within the network. There were also reports that several cast members threatened to quit the show, some citing their family's privacy, some demanding higher pay, and some complaining that they were being portrayed in the wrong light. For OWN, the situation was nothing short of a blast. The network was busy trying to manage the crumbling reputation, but even those efforts showed weakness. LMH's ratings disappearance was a clear indication that OWN was thinking that maybe the storm could be weathered by covering up weak numbers, but that never happens. The audience was watching everything, and every silence made them more suspicious. On the other hand, Bell Collective's situation was no different. In every episode, the same old conflicts, the same accusations, the same fights, and the same artificial emotions would come up again and again. The rivalry between the cast was no longer interesting to the audience. People wanted to see the original, but OWN was still showing what had been successful before. Times had changed, and so had the audience. Every scene, every conversation, every fight began to be repeated so often that the line between reality and drama became not blurred but completely disappeared. This was the reason why people started moving away from their favorite shows. The biggest blow to OWN was LMH's ratings that didn't come through. When a show that was the pride of a network suddenly goes silent, questions naturally arise. Was the network afraid to face the truth? Were the numbers so poor that disclosing them risked a scandal? Or was there a decision made within the network that the time was not deemed appropriate to make public? Whatever the reason, this silence exacerbated the crisis. Viewers, social media, and industry experts all agreed on one thing: OWN is in trouble. And if not corrected in time, the network may never regain the prestige it once stood for. OWN was no longer just suffering a story crisis. It had become an identity crisis. The network that was once a symbol of authenticity has today become a factory of artificiality. Controversy machine and repetitive dramas. Viewers want to watch something else now, but OWN is still selling what made it a success years ago. That was the point from which this decline began. And that's the point from which OWN has to rise again. It can.